Hey friends, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Tom Campbell, former admissions officer from Pomona College and College of the Holy Cross, here to spill the tea, or in my case, a La Colombe draft mocha latte, on what college admissions officers are really looking for when they're looking through your extracurricular activities. Now, if you're applying to what I call the most highly rejected colleges out there, so places like MIT, UChicago, Caltech, and more, you've probably heard that having a killer resume packed with amazing achievements outside of your perfect grades and test scores are essential if you want to be a competitive applicant. But after reading thousands of applications over 10 years in the biz, I've learned that there are some key mistakes that even the most objectively qualified students make consistently year after year when mapping out how to spend their time outside of the classroom. In this video, I'll go over what I call the 7 deadly sins of extracurricular planning and wrap up with some action steps that you can take to avoid some of these pitfalls and have the most exciting college options available to you. But first off, just how important are extracurriculars in the US admission process? I have data. So just to zoom out for a second, there are just under 3,000 four-year colleges in the United States, and the 185 sampled in this annual survey by NACAC are a pretty accurate representation of the breadth of colleges that are available in the US. As you can see from this data, at most US colleges, extracurricular activities are far less important than their main points of criteria, which are your high school course choices, your rigor, your grades, your positive character attributes, and your essays, which is where you typically share more about those positive character attributes in your own words and through your own life experience. In fact, most of the colleges surveyed, 44%, shared that extracurriculars are moderately important to their admission process. So for most of you tuning in, getting involved outside of the classroom in whichever clubs, organizations, teams, or activities are available within your local environment are a great way to check that moderately important box off of your list. Now, how many should you do? According to the Common Application, most students put down 5 to 7 activities on their application. These include ones that you've stepped away from early on in your high school experience, or shorter one-off activities like summer programs, jobs, or service trips. But while it's common to have 5 to 7 activities listed on your application, from my experience, I would say that even the most high-achieving students typically only have around 3 to 4 what I call core activities that they have enough time to actively invest in. Investing in 3 to 4 core activities will provide you with plenty of opportunities and experiences to help you start to find your people, build community with peers, gain social skills, and start to develop some of the valued qualities that colleges are actively looking for in students. So things like initiative, impact, consistency, and commitment. Now, from this data, you'll also notice that there's a small sampling of colleges, about 6.5%, that mark extracurricular activities as considerably important as part of their admission process. These are by and large those highly rejected colleges I mentioned before, which, side note, only represent about 0.5% of US high school graduates. At these schools, with acceptance rates far below 10% and thousands of applications, most students are academically admissible. So, standing out through other means, like a high-impact extracurricular profile, is good to be thinking about if you're targeting this teensy tiny tier of schools. But let's get into the juice and clarify how not to approach building this high-impact extracurricular profile by going through what I call the 7 deadly sins of extracurricular planning. Number 1. Having the what's most impressive to colleges mentality define your entire extracurricular approach. There's often a gross misalignment between what students think college admissions officers find to be impressive versus what actually is impressive. Probably one of the biggest examples that I can think of is National Honor Society. And I just gotta say, it really does absolutely virtually nothing to increase your chances of admission, especially given how commonplace it is on a student's resume. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't join something like NHS if it's available to you. It's a great way to potentially build leadership skills if you join the executive team and make meaningful contributions to your local community through service endeavors, but just joining it for the sake of impressing someone and looking at the time it might take and the requirements are some really important questions to ask yourself when you're trying to whittle down how to spend your time outside of the classroom. Colleges are essentially always asking themselves, what's in it for us? As in, how do you show that you're going to contribute to a college community? What spaces are you going to occupy here? If you're seeking ways to stand out by trying to do something that's really exclusive or only a certain small percentage of people do, but there's no real direct pipeline to what the college offers that you can slot into, yeah, it can look neat on your college application, but I wouldn't really argue that it's actually gaining you any meaningful points solely because it's exclusive. Number 2, thinking that a formal leadership role or a title is the only way to demonstrate leadership. Many students think that you need to be the president or monarch or czar or oracle or insert name of other real or made up leadership role of multiple clubs, organizations, and teams to be a competitive college applicant. Not true. While a title alone can communicate a lot about your responsibility and your investment, there are actually many students who are leading lots of great initiatives and having their values guide their involvement who don't have any title at all. For instance, one of our college essay guide college counselors recently worked with a student who wrote about pushing for a gender-inclusive formal wear policy for her soccer team, since they were previously asked to wear dresses on away game days. The kicker, LOL because soccer, she wasn't actually the team captain. Other examples that clearly demonstrate leadership without a title are a student who organized an in-school food bank distributing unused food to food insecure students to take home and grew the project from one school to a district to a state. A student who noticed that autistic students ate in a separate lunchroom. He asked if he could eat with them and soon brought others with him, and eventually the segregation ended. A student who played his violin at senior centers to entertain the residents. He realized that many of them were former musicians, and he started bringing instruments and organizing ensembles. He created an organization of students doing this at different residences. They brought music back to so many lives by engaging, not just entertaining. A student who created a simple mental health curriculum for middle schoolers after giving a TEDx talk at a school assembly. A group of interested students gathered and they got funding and worked to bring the program into schools. You get the idea. The moral of the story, leadership is certainly a valued quality among many colleges, but titles and roles are not the only way to achieve this. And side note, leaders don't always have to be the person at the front of the line, pushing past the barricade or holding the banner in the parade. When you think about things like drama club and theater, it really takes a village to get those productions up and running. So people like the stage manager, producers, all of those roles have capacity for students to develop their own unique take and perspective on leadership, because not everyone can be the loudest voice in the room, and things can't get done if everyone's competing for that same role. Now, if you're feeling insecure that you don't have as many fancy titles as other people around you, know that your college essays are the prime place to be able to show through your words and experiences that you do have those chops and you do have something to contribute. High school can be a pretty political place at times, and there are so many instances where students who are really actually doing the heavy lifting don't get all the credit that they deserve. So let your college application and your essays be that place for you. Number 3, solely prioritizing activities based on their pedigree, prestige, and/or selectivity. Many summer programs held on college campuses would fall into this category. It's common for students and families to think something along the lines of, doing a summer pre-college program at Harvard is definitely going to impress admissions officers because, well, it's Harvard. But summer programs along these lines often have no connection or relationship to the admission office, and most were developed as a way to make use of a more sparse and empty campus and bring in short-term revenue during the summer months. That's not to say that these programs can't be valuable additions to your college process and/or your life, but only doing them because you think that they'll look good for college can leave you feeling uninspired and unsatisfied. So if you're doing some of these programs, great, but as you do them, be sure to take notes, observe how you're feeling about it, and spend some time reflecting on why the experience is important to you, what you've learned, and how you're growing. Remember, just name-dropping titles of programs or elite schools alone doesn't actually show an admissions officer a whole lot. Number 4, sticking with activities you've come to loathe in order to show commitment and consistency. So our team has worked with many students who mentioned that they only pursued certain activities, like an instrument that they were playing since they were 5 years old, because they were afraid to step away from these long-term commitments. Now, I'd be lying if I said that achieving a certain level of expertise and excellence in a certain area can be wonderful to share with colleges. In fact, Stanford University, as they're reading through applications and taking notes on students, they specifically mention POEs, or points of excellence, that a student may possess. And sometimes this is an academic or intellectual talent, and other times it's an extracurricular talent that's really important to the college and university. But no matter how excellent you've become at something, it should never take precedence over your long-term mental health and wellness. So if you find yourself dreading every meeting, practice, or rehearsal of a certain extracurricular activity, it could be a sign that stepping away from it will allow you to pursue things that will give you so much more joy and satisfaction. Now, I know that the prospect of stepping away from something that has defined so much of your life can be stressful and intimidating, especially if you're continuing the activity out of family obligation or pressure, but doing so will allow you to have more mental space and, frankly, time to feel more engaged and excited about the activities that you want to dive into, which will lead to a happier life overall and a happier college application. If you need help sharing news like this with your family, talk to a trusted adult, family member, a counselor, or a mentor who can help guide you through that conversation and be an advocate for you if you need it. Also, valuable side note, essays about stepping away from activities like these and the power of saying no and having healthy boundaries often show vulnerability, self-awareness, and a maturity to colleges, and can be wonderful stories to share amidst an application full of amazing accolades. Number 5, not exploring activities and opportunities outside of your own high school. So while many high schools, particularly in more affluent school districts, are chock full of a bunch of different clubs and sports teams and arts ensembles, there are many others that don't quite have that plethora of offerings. Insert overused college application word. Also, because so many high schools offer similar categories of activities, solely focusing the scope of your extracurricular life within the confines of your school can have your application feeling a little familiar to admissions officers, understandably. However, in the age of the the internet, there are seemingly infinite ways for students to occupy their time. Of course, some of these aren't really seen as extracurricular activities, so like Minecraft 4 nights a week doesn't really count, but online communities around a shared interest or identity can show colleges that you're the type of person that loves to bring people together, to build community, and to share your enthusiasm or your curiosity around a certain topic. So beyond online communities and MOOC, massive online open courses, consider activities and societies available to students from your hometown, such as a teen writer section of your local paper, scouts, 4-H, religious communities, a youth advisory board, club sports teams. Things like these are all great ways to spread your wings, meet peers from different walks of life, and pursue something that may not be available or maybe isn't available at the degree of competition or intensity that you're prepared for within the confines of your own high school. Plus, if you're looking to make an impact through your activities within your community, collaborating with other students from other high schools or like-minded peers who share your vision or interests from across your hometown can help you develop your teamwork and your collaboration skills. Number 6, shelling out lots of money for expensive pay-to-play programs to stand out. So given the frenzy and the rat race that is the selective college admission process, the number of companies that are offering expensive opportunities for you to stand out to colleges has grown exponentially in the past 5-10 years. These include immersive travel opportunities, some of which have what might be called a voluntourism service component that can actually be a little problematic and tone deaf when it comes to actual justice issues, or research programs where your project is guaranteed to be published and or peer reviewed. Many companies like this will tout claims, statistics, facts, and figures that working with them will provide you with a higher acceptance rate at some of the colleges that might be on your list. Now, I'm not here to give you a comprehensive list of good or bad companies because it really depends on the individual student, what they're looking for, and how much of an alignment there is between their interests and what the company does provide. So it's really impossible for me to make that sole judgment call. But what I will encourage you to do is to take these opportunities with a grain of salt and not see them as the silver bullet in the college admission process. In fact, I can say from experience, many admissions officers can actually be pretty turned off when experiences that a student is sharing in their activities list and in their college application repeatedly appear to be what I would call bot experiences versus ones that were earned or self-directed. Here's what one former Ivy League admission officer who requested to remain anonymous had to say to ProPublica about paid research programs. The business of churning out high school research is a fast-growing epidemic. The number of outfits doing this has tripled or quadrupled in the past few years. There are very few actual prodigies. There are a lot of precocious kids who are working hard and doing advanced things. A sophomore in high school is not going to be doing high-level neuroscience, and yet a very high number of kids are including this. Now, one program that I can say with confidence has a really highly respected reputation in the college admission space is Pioneer Research. And no, they're not paying me to say this, but this is a program that has been around for many, many years prior to the admissions industrial complex, and it's accredited by Oberlin College, which is a selective liberal arts college in Ohio. So if you stumble upon a program among the internet or in research that you've done that looks exciting and interesting and you think could actually make a meaningful impact on your college application, ask your school counselor or a trusted adult who knows the admission landscape for advice about it. Better yet, you can actually email the regional admissions officer from some of the colleges that you're interested in to get their candid take. When I worked in admissions, I would be happy to answer emails along these lines and let students know about some of the extracurricular choices they may be wrestling with, so that way they have some clarity and guidance straight from the horse's mouth. Bonus, your email will actually count as demonstrated interest, which is an important aspect in many, many colleges' admission process. And according to the NACAC data I shared before, even more than extracurriculars at most places. Number 7. Modeling your extracurricular path after another student who was admitted to top colleges. Now, don't get me wrong. It's great to lean on the wisdom of trusted friends, family members, or peers who've successfully navigated the college admission process, or even well-meaning students on YouTube and TikTok, but emulating or recreating someone else's extracurricular or academic profile and assuming that those are the things that tip the scale for the student in the admission process can really leave you feeling less motivated and inspired by your activities. For one, selective colleges have these things called institutional priorities, which are less controllable factors in the admission process. There's a few of them on the screen next to me that do play a heavy hand in the admission process. These priorities are very fluid and very variable from college to college, and even from year to year at the same college. So it's very possible that a student that you're idolizing or seeing as the model could have had a very heavy-handed hook or edge that you don't know about. All that to say, it's possible that the student that you're associating with a successful college process because they got into insert name of highly rejected school could have very well had an extracurricular profile that was deemed just fine or satisfactory by the admission team. So yes, lean on their wisdom, but don't try to be them, because there's only one you, and you're pretty dang amazing in your own right. All right, keep impacting, keep initiating, and keep inspiring. We'll see you next time.